Nice to be back here after a year off. We are introducing and inducting 2 years worth of inductees this year. The one thing we'll notice different is usually Jack Swanson is doing the MC. Jack's very comfortable behind the mic, me not so much. So my plan is to just try to stay out of the way as much as possible. Before we get started, I'd like to do some thank yous to everybody. First off, the school janitorial staff. This is now the band room, and they've done a great job. Titus, are you up there? Yeah. I'll just grab it. I'll hold it. All right. Thank you to the janitorial staff. Like I said, this is the band room now, and they've done a good job of getting it prepared so we could have this ceremony in here today. Also to the kitchen staff here at the school, we are going to be served some treats afterwards, and they've been gracious enough to make those and get that ready for us. So big thank you to them. Thank you to Ken Hayden, the athletic director. He's getting his feet wet a little bit as he's new athletic director, so I'm kind of thanking him for all the help he's going to be in the future also. Titus Queens, our sound guy, thanks for coming and setting things up for us. Thanks to Quality Printing for making up the programs for today. And Paula Dirks from Unique Creations for making the plaques. And also at this time, I'd like to thank the Athletic Hall of Fame committee. And if you're here today, if we could have you stand up. These are the people that do the work, that pick the names and get the people ready for this event. So, Jane Evans, Jane's over there. Terry Gottsman, Norm Flagstead, Ken Hayden, Sharon Pulowski, Don Ross, Sheldon Bottenstall, Kurt Weston. I want to give these people a round of applause. Before we get started, I would like any people who are already been inducted into the Hall of Fame that are guests today to please stand. I know there's a few of you here. Sure, I saw Jim Stordahl somewhere. Jim? Mark Pastor, Jeff Olson, Mike Ross, Terry Gottsman. And with that, we'll try to get the program started. Our first presenter today is really the real reason we're here. He is a Hall of Famer, I think maybe in 2 countries, and he had the vision to get this Hall of Fame going. When he retired from Roseau, he left some really big shoes to fill. Partly because he's a great athletic director and principal, and partly because he's got some really big feet. With that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Terry Gottsman.
Thank you. Before I introduce Dean, I'd like to make a comment about the Hall of Fame in general. These individuals up here, whether they were team members or coaches, when they were in their prime of their careers, not one of them, I believe, thought about being in the Hall of Fame. I can guarantee you that. Things just happened. They've earned the right to be here, be inducted, and it's an honor to say thank you to them. One other thing, thank you to, is the Citizen State Bank. They are the ones who supply the plaques, refreshments, etc. Also school commons of home. I'd like to thank them for their help with that. My pleasure to introduce my good friend Dean Blaze. I'm going to tell you the real story how we hired Dean Blaze. A lot of rumors out there how we hired Dean. Dean basically hired us. He heard that we had an opening. I don't know how he did. We hadn't posted it yet. Bernie Burgraff mentioned it to him. So he was going home on the weekend in National Falls, and he calls me on the way home on Sunday night. Group?
Absolutely.
Yeah, on a Sunday night. So can I talk to you about the hockey coaching job? I said, sure, we can do that. We stopped at my office and we talked a few minutes, and I said, the first question I asked him, why would you leave University of North Dakota to come to a high school coaching? He said, well, one thing, Roseau is one of the top programs in the state. Number two, the biggest thing, I'm tired of being a pylon for Gino Gasparini. He was tired of moving things around. So I said, well, talk to him. We're going to interview at some point. He'll send me a resume. So I went home and I said to myself, no, I don't want a resume. I called the next day and said, we're going to come interview. Dale Hallis and myself. Now, principal at the time, we had an opening, you should be involved. We went to Grand Forks, WTZY and Grandpa's Herald kept bugging me all the time. Who you hired? Who you hired? Well, we interviewed the best person in Grand Forks. And right across the street is WDZ TV. So that went very, very well. There's only, I told Dean there was one stipulation. If we hire you, is you have to be involved with the football program. Jeff Olson was the coach at the time. He said, what do you mean be involved? I said, you're going to be involved. We have to get hockey players out for football. They have basketball players coming up for football or wrestling, etc. He said, okay, that's fine. Well, I'm not, he had a great coaching record, but I'm not going to remember what his record was in 8th grade football. So I'm kidding about that. One other negative with Dean is all the years that I was in elected, we never spent more money on pucks. We bought over 500 pucks that year. And probably get most of it probably at the Lund House. Billy probably took half at home. Greg's going to use them this year when he coaches the team. So at least they're going to be used. Dean's coaching career spans over 40 years. That's a long time. He's had lofty accomplishments at every level, from high school to juniors to college to international games. He's leading teams to signature moments in every one of those areas. Most people associate Dean as the head coach of UND Fighting Sioux hockey, leading the Sioux to 2 national titles in 1997 and 2000. He coached the Sioux for 11 years. After a 3-year stint with Columbus Blue Jackets at the NHL, Blaze finished his coaching career at the University of Nebraska-Omaha after 8 years. His 19-year coaching record was 407 wins, 84 losses, and 14 winning seasons. That's quite an accomplishment. One thing about Dean you'll notice, if those of you know him, there's nothing about him bragging about anything he doesn't even want to talk about, but he's earned all those accomplishments. He coached the U.S. National Junior team to a gold medal in 2010. He also was an assistant coach with the U.S. 1992 Olympic team, and they beat it in France, I believe. Blaze was a 4-time WC Coach of the Year, 2-time winner of the Spin Rose Award as National College Coach of the Year, Minnesota State High School Coach of the Year, and USHL Coach of the Year. Dean will be inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame this December. After high school at International Falls, where he played for legendary coach Larry Ross, Dean started for University of Minnesota. He was the 5th round pick by the Chicago Blackhawks. In the 1971 NHL Amateur Draft, he played 3 seasons of pro hockey and was part of the 1973 U.S. National Team. I'd like to present Dean Blaze for induction into the Roseau Hall of Fame.
Terry took half my speech, but that's okay, I still love him. He forgot to mention that when we went 0-8, that he did fire me that year. So, Doug, I did try to be a good football coach. I said, don't hire me. In the fall, I get ready for hockey. I'll try to do it, but I'm not promising anything, and I delivered 0-8. Thank you for the committee for selecting me for this honor. I'm extremely honored and thrilled with this. Congratulations to all the other inductees. I have a few people that I see in the audience here that I'd like to say hello to. It's Jeff Parker from Warroad. He's here, so I don't say anything bad about Warroad. Bruce Falk, Jeff Olson coached with me, and I see Gary Ross, who was a 4th grade teacher here, legendary 4th grade teacher. And we'll talk about the elementary physical education job in a bit. But first I have a few other things to say. Terry went over a lot of the hockey stuff. I couldn't have been in a better situation to come to a better community. This was the community. And Bernie Berggraf and Nancy certainly were over at North Dakota a lot. Nancy did all of our power skating, and Gail Johnson was the secretary, and Lowell, and behold, I met Dick Johnson. And I never put the two together. It took me about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until I got to know Dick and Gail very well. My wife stayed back in Grand Forks, so I had a daughter who was graduating from Grand Forks Central, so I ate every other meal with Dick and Gail Johnson, and so did my son Ben. When I went on the ice with the team, I was given the talent, and Bob Lindell attests to that, that was almost the same as the college team. So any kind of different drills or anything you thought you could do, they could handle. We had size, strength, speed, but what we mostly had is a bunch of good kids with good parents. And Jeff can attest to that. There's not one time that whole first year. Second year was a little rougher, but the first year we did everything we said we were going to do. We never lost in 2 years a game in conference. To get down to that state tournament certainly was not easy. But in practice, every day in practice, the kids came to the arena, smile on their face, and left very tired because we worked hard. And we lost to one of the Grand Forks teams during that year, and then Grand Rapids beat us before the state tournament. And lo and behold, we beat Grand Rapids for the state championship. We had an opportunity at the state tournament for each team was represented by a player. And I'm sure Flash Lombone wrote Chris Heist's speech. Chris talked to everyone about the community of Roseau, what it meant, and the dedication. And I'll tell you what, when I had the kids over to the skating rink, all the parents would show up, heightened skates, and we skated for a month. Sorry, Gail Halverson would have probably fired me, but I drove a school bus with 3 classes over there. Every kid had a pair of skates. They could go out on the one rink, or they could go out on the other and do whatever they wanted. It was pretty unique, and the teachers would go out and skate, and it was really a great time. We played field hockey, floor hockey, and ice hockey that year. They didn't know what a basketball was. I'm just kidding. We had a great program started by some great teachers, and I really believe that, and I see some of them here now, and they know who they are. They were all good. And I've done a little rambling, but I can really say this was one of the top jobs that I've ever had. I think it propelled me, gave me an opportunity to coach the Olympic team. I spent the 2 years here, and then Mr. Gossman gave me a year off to go with that Olympic team, and we went to Albertville and got into the medal round. And then after that, the job opened up in North Dakota, and I was lucky enough to have a lot of talent over there. And part of the reason I skipped over, because I wanted to say a few things that went along with what Terry was saying. But one of the things I always remember is how tough it was to coach as an assistant coach. And like Gino, I was in charge of the hockey school, no problem. That was all summer, and charge of recruiting. As you guys know, a college coach in every sport, doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, hockey, that's your main job. And my job at the school was to run the hockey arena. So those are big time jobs. And I came over here and I was accepted by the community. I lived right across the street with Forrest and Levon Ammerman, and it was a dream come true. I hunted out with the Isneys and Hegedals. I could go over in Warwood with fish. I didn't know Jeff Parker at the time, but I wish I would have. I would have had 182 walleyes the first year. But a lot has changed. I lost a lot of good friends like you did, and the Johnsons and the Berggrafs. And 3 years ago, we had a reunion, and we said goodbye to Dick, basically. And a lot of the players, the whole team almost, went over and saw Dick in the nursing home over there. And was a tough friend to lose. But this was the best job I ever had, and I want to thank you for coming today, and thank the community, and thank Terry Gottsman for keeping me straight that those couple first years. We didn't have many problems. We had a little controversy. I remember the one time we were trying to buy new helmets, gloves, pants, and jersey. So it was basically, and you know what, I look in the crowd, Terry, and there's the colors that we had. I see a lime green, a forest green, I don't know, a lot of different greens, and I walked in and showed Terry what they sent me and what he ordered, and there were all different colors. Whatever piece of equipment I had, I blame Terry for ordering it, but it didn't. Yeah, it didn't matter. But certainly, I only got 5 minutes, and I was supposed to cut it off a while ago. But I'm just happy to be here, and thrilled, and it's something I'll always remember. Thank you, Roseau. Go Rams.
Yes, congratulations, Dean. Very deserving. At this time, I'm going to once again call on Mr. Terry Gottsman.
Thank you, Stuart. If we think Dean Blaze was a competitor, Doug Rawich is probably a tougher competitor, I can tell you. Doug came in our football program. We followed Jeff Olson. Jeff Olson basically revived the program for what it was years past. The only reason I said we had Dean there, not because of his record, he encouraged hockey players to go out, and that helped a lot. Doug took the team, the program to the next level. He was originally, his background basically is in basketball. He won a state title in, what was it? Where did he won it? At Central Valley. John Lang was hired as assistant. He was primarily involved with football, and we hired him as basketball. And the two-pronged approach there again, they both worked in each other's program, and that helped us immensely. Doug coached the Rams for 15 years. How many players have Doug are in the audience here? Okay, I'm going to ask you a question and see if you can answer the question. Doug had a slogan regarding the word team. Can you remember what that slogan was?
Together, every day, all the time, make it happen.
Exactly. Is Coach Lang here? Yeah. I asked him what the slogan was about 3 weeks ago. I had part of the slogan down myself. I asked him, he said, well, something about team, and I said, well, I called Doug and we got it, so I'm really proud of you guys. You did a good job. He never did this. Doug was a very dedicated, demanding coach. Doug even yelled at defensive coordinator John Lang a couple times. Can't your defense stop these guys? And he didn't do it lightly, I can believe you that. He was an enthusiastic coach, like I said. Excellent communicator with his players. He was devoted to teaching kids lifetime lessons. Doug led the Rams to 2 state tournament appearances in the modern era. Lost in the quarterfinals both times to Becker, and Becker was the champion in one of those years. Winning a section championship and earning the opportunity to participate in the state tournament was a great achievement. These teams, in all probability, will be inducted into the Roseau Hall of Fame at some point. He played high school football for the Stephen Tigers, then went on to play college football at Mayville State. He was an assistant coach at Central Valley High School, North Dakota, or as the head coach there, and assistant coach at Malone High School in football before coming to Roseau. As a head basketball coach at Central Valley, I mentioned he won in 1993, he won a state title. Lastly, I'll present Doug Roberts for Tryman into the Roseau Athletic Coach.
Speaker, oh yeah. Well, thank you, Terry, for the kind words. I want to congratulate all the Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for considering and selecting me as an inductee as a head football coach into the Roseau Ram Hall of Fame. It is an honor I will cherish for the rest of my life. Thank you to Mr. Gottsman for having the faith to hire me in 1994 to run the football program in Roseau and providing me with the appropriate tools to develop a successful program. Mr. Gottsman, as an athletic director, your support throughout the 15 years that I coached in Roseau was greatly appreciated. You were the finest athletic director that I ever worked for. Supportive athletic directors are essential for the development of programs to efficiently occur, and you provided that for me as a head football coach at Roseau. Today, I share this honor of being inducted into the Roseau Hall of Fame with you. Thank you for your support throughout the years. Most of all, thank you to the coaches that worked side by side with me throughout the bad times and the good times. For at least 10 out of the 15 years that I was the head football coach at Roseau. If you are present, when I introduce you, please stand and be recognized. John Lang was my defensive coordinator. Tracy Wenzeloff was my offensive and defensive lineman coach. Ryan Bergstrom was my freshman junior varsity coach, who also sat in the booth with headphones relaying information to me during game nights and trying to keep me calm. And Rob Sando, who worked with Brian Bergstrom with the freshman and junior varsity teams, as well as assisting on the sidelines during varsity football games. As I stated earlier, these 4 core coaches worked with me for 10 or more years. Other coaches like Aaron Nelson, Paul Clark, Scott Oliver, Jeff Olson, Gary Hokinson, Oliver Ullman, and Donnie Johnson, who is a mainstay within our 7th and 8th grade programs, helped guide our student athletes to provide success within our football program. These assistant coaches stressed the 2 major ideals that I wanted to provide for our student athletes in our football program. They emphasized our philosophical beliefs of working hard, respecting people, and finishing what you start, and encouraged what we believe the word team stood for. Willie, together, every day, all the time, make it happen. I am a firm believer that a consistent coaching staff provides a consistent program. To all my coaches, with passion and effort, we prove that the Roseau Ram football program can be respectful, competitive, and successful throughout the state. I know that I am being inducted today as a head football coach in the Roseau Hall of Fame, but you all share in this honor with me today. Thank you for your loyalty and years of work within our football program. When I coached, I had a love and a passion for the game of football. The game of football provides so many life lessons for student athletes, and in my belief, it is the only true team sport today. I want the community to know that my coaching staff and I gave our hearts and souls to this program, and that we tried everything within our power to promote a program that the players, school, and community could be extremely proud of. We may not have won all the time, but the players that I coached throughout the years played with enthusiasm, energy, and a passion for the game of football. Not many coaches nor teams in the area wanted to play Roseau because they knew that win or lose, our football team would be prepared to compete with excitement and passion for the game. So many memories are engraved in my mind throughout the 15 years as a head football coach at Roseau. One of the ultimate pleasures that I had as a head coach was watching our football program steadily improve throughout the year. From the early years of 1994 through 1996, when our football team went 1-17, and oh, by the way, that's not why I have the loss of hair, to defeating Monoman for the first time during the 1997-1998 season, having our first winning record during the 1999-2000 season, and from the years between 2000 and 2003, defeating Perm for the first time, winning our first Heart of Lakes Conference title, participating in 3 straight Section 8 3A championship games, winning back-to-back Section 8 3A championships and participating in back-to-back state tournament appearances. I am extremely proud of the efforts and passion that my players and coaching staff provided throughout the years. In conclusion, I promised Jack I would stay within 6 minutes, so I will do that. By the way, Dean, where are you at? You beat me. He's pretty proud of that. In conclusion, memories last a lifetime, and I cherish the many memories and relationships that I have had with my players and coaches throughout the 15 years I coached Roseau football. As an old history teacher, I would like to conclude by modifying a phrase used by Douglas MacArthur. Old coaches never die, they just fade away. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Growich. Doug did bring something to Roseau that we were not used to, and that was a state tournament football game. I can still remember the game, how exciting. The field over there was packed. There wasn't a lot of green in the crowd because it was the night before deer season. And every deer camp in the area came in, they had their orange coats on, and it was exciting. We scored, I don't remember if it was the opening kickoff or the opening drive, we scored right away. And I think we recovered a fumble right away or something, scored again, and things were looking good, and then things went south, but it was an exciting night. State football game in Roseau, so thank you for those memories. Our next presenter, well, welcome back to Roseau. He was an elementary teacher and our very first swim coach. I'd like to call on at this time, Ryan Highmark.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to the inductees and thank you to those of you in the community that are here today. As Stu pointed out, I was an elementary teacher here at Roseau for 9 years, and I was hired by Terry Gottsman in 1997 to begin the girls swim program. And here I was fresh out of college, starting a brand new program in a community where swimming was not a big thing. So, and I have to thank Annalise for everything that she did as we were getting that program going. Annalise was only a 6th grader when we began the program. And we had to get permission from the Minnesota State High School League and from Terry to allow her to be on our program, be in our program as a 6th grader, and she did. We only had 9 swimmers, including Annalise. And we would go from meet to meet. Annalise was at every meet, she was at every practice, and along with those other 8 girls, she kind of became a leader as a 6th grader. As she grew older into 7th grade, now she could compete at the varsity level, and she did very well. In fact, she did so well that it kind of became contagious with the rest of our team. The other girls noticed what she was doing. They noticed the hard work that she was putting in, the drive, the dedication that she had, and it helped them get better as well. That drive carried on, and I had the privilege of coaching her for 7 years, which most coaches don't get that many years with an athlete. And during that 7 years, you can imagine the size of our team, the distance that we had to travel because there weren't a lot of swim teams close by. We did a lot of our traveling in vans. So I spent many hours traveling in vans with Annalise and her teammates, which there's many memories that go along with that. Lots of things that if I look back, things that happened. Getting pulled over by the state trooper for not paying for gas at a gas station in a school vehicle. I'm sure she remembers that one. Or getting stuck in a parking ramp because the van was too big for the parking ramp. And finding parking in the cities when we go down there for the state meets. And just a lot of time in a van, a lot of things to remember, snowstorms and so on. So, it's one of those things that I will always remember, and I'm sure she will maybe remember those things. But another thing that really that I can really think about and really bring back with coaching Annalise during those 7 years was the grit that she showed. She had not only that drive and determination, but she had this grit that you don't see in a lot of athletes. She would stay after practice. She knew the pool from one end to the other. She could tell you, if she closed her eyes, she could tell you where she was at in the pool. And it came to benefit her at one of our section meets. In the finals, she dove in, her goggles filled with water, and she knew how to finish that race even with her goggles full of water because she knew where the wall was going to be. And that was one of the years that she did very well at state following that up. Another thing that when I talk about grit, the grit that she showed her senior year at the state championship meet. The night before the finals, she had swam excellently well during the prelims. And that night, in the hotel room, she ended up with the flu. Not what we wanted, not what she had planned, and she was devastated. The next morning, she could hardly get out of bed. As we're going to the finals, I actually had to take her to the University of Minnesota doctor and have him examine her. And they did allow her to swim with lots of fluids, but it just goes to show that grit that Annalise always had. The last thing was, then after she graduated, she went to UND, swam there, became a captain, again, showed that leadership on their team. And then the thing that really makes me proud of what she's done is after college, she started coaching. And I got to see her coach a couple times where she was coaching younger students, younger swimmers, and eventually I had to swim against her as I was coaching a boys team in Detroit Lakes and she was coaching the Moorhead team. And the couple of years that I got to coach against her while she was doing that meant a lot to me. So, with that, I would like to honor Annalise Bruns as a 2020 inductee into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Ryan. I can't tell you what a privilege it is to be here today. Thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for the time and effort you spent recognizing the great athletes that have come through this school and represented Roseau Rams. It is such an honor to be chosen, and I admire and respect all of the other inductees here today. Bob Lund, I have to mention that my childhood home still has some wallpaper that may have been installed by you, so it's stood the test of time. I have very fond memories of wearing green and white and swimming as a Roseau Ram and just competing in this sport that I have always loved. I'm struck with an extreme sense of gratitude when I reflect on my journey as an athlete. None of this, when I just stop and consider all the people and things I'm grateful for, but none of this is possible without my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. He blessed me with the gift of life, along with talents and abilities, and he placed certain people in my path that made all the difference. And it's with his guidance and grace that I was able to navigate the highs and lows of this sport and life in general. So I am also very thankful for my high school coach, Ryan Heinrich. I'm glad you saw your vision through of starting a high school swim team here in Roseau, when of course frozen water was much more popular. As a coach now myself, I know that I didn't fully understand the work that went in behind the scenes for you to prepare our seasons and the time and the effort that goes into so much more than just practice and meets. Back then, everything was by hand. We get to do everything with computers and everything now, but we had everything was written out for meets and preparation for that by hand. But I know how valuable it was to have a coach who cared about my goals and what I could accomplish. I do remember the card he gave me the night before I won the state championships my junior year. And in that, he reminded me that I had put in the work, that I deserved to be swimming against the best in the state, because it was always a little intimidating coming down from northern Minnesota down to the cities, a lot of big schools, big athletes. But he reminded me that I deserved to be there. and that you believed in me. So thank you for that, and it made that moment all the much sweeter when I was standing on the podium the next day. Thank you for making the 6 trips to the state championships with me. He stole all of my van memories, though. There was definitely a highlight for getting pulled over for forgetting to pay for gas, or the van stuck in the parking ramp. I don't know if you mentioned dodging logging trucks coming, like sliding across the freeway. That was one of our first trips down there. I don't know if those are fond memories for you, but they certainly stood out for me as memories that have stuck with. But thank you for being my coach and for being here today. It means a lot. I am thankful for my teammates and the memories we made and the fun that we had, cheering, laughing at inside jokes, the bus and van rides, and of course the daily grind at practice. Many of these girls are my lifelong friends, and I treasure those memories with them. One particular highlight that always stands out to me with them was our 200 medley relay with Laura Glassman, Jessica Bowl, Elizabeth Steinsberg. And we won the Section 8A championships in 2003. That was something we had dreamed of as a team, that we had worked for all season, for several seasons long, and it was a very exciting race. So the support of many friends and family, both from this community and beyond, is valuable. Thank you for those that spent time and drove here today. Of course, I know how different my experience was as an athlete because of my family. The love and support that they provided throughout my years of club, high school, and college swimming are immeasurable. I love that I got to spend so many years as a teammate with my sister Kari on the Rams. She was my rock when the nerves would get to me, and it was amazing being your teammates, having you there to cheer me up, cheering you on to your own accomplishments, and I could always count on you to make me laugh. I didn't get the privilege to swim on the same team as my baby sister Kirsten, but she was always there, drugged to those meets as a little girl, cheering for all of us with signs and pom-poms, and eventually she was in the pool herself, setting her own goals and records, and I was the one cheering in the stands like crazy. So I'm sorry that you had to endure a few years under my coaching with the Roseau Rays, but I love that after years in the sport that I get to coach side by side with you, and that my children are now learning about the sport from their Auntie Kirsten. Just a few more words. To my parents, it's hard to put into words how much I love you. And I'm thankful for what you gave and sacrificed for me. We had a steep learning curve in a sport that was largely unknown up here in northern Minnesota. Dad, he drove me to countless morning practices, always called me his champ, drove us hundreds and hundreds of miles back and forth to the cities for many meets and even states beyond, just so I could gain experience I needed to chase my dreams. And you also taped countless races, usually a few feet ahead of where we were actually swimming, just because he was cheering so loud. But Mom, you were always there, faithfully, at every swim meet. And what I now know is a very torturous position as a parent, to be sitting in the stands knowing there's nothing that you can do for your child to help them just do their best. But you were also there with me. You celebrated my highs and victories. You made me wear my medals. And you grieved with me my senior year when that bad timing of the stomach flu derailed some of my hopes of winning another state championship. Thank you both for your constant love and support through it all. Standing on the podium after winning the 100 breasts was much sweeter, getting to wave at you in the stands and knowing it was something that we had done together. All right, just a couple more. Thank you to Pat Anderson for being here tonight. He's the head coach for Northern Lights Swimming in Moorhead, along with the high school coach in both Moorhead and Fargo, and he took part in nominating me for the Hall of Fame. And incidentally, because swimming is such a small world, it was his club swimmer that I out-touched by 2 100ths to win that state championship back in 2002. So it's been an honor to coach with you the past 13 years. I've learned a lot and I've grown as a coach because of many of those opportunities. Last but not least, thank you to my husband, love of my life, Joshua. While you've experienced most of my swimming journey after high school, you learned to support my obsession with water, whether I was competing or on deck as a coach. It was my lifelong dream to be a mother and a swim coach, and I love partnering in life with you and making those dreams come true. To my 4 children, I just want you to know that I love you. Linnea, Andrews, Elin, Leif. I'm glad you like the sport of swimming so far. You clearly have talent and work ethic, but I want you to know that no matter what you choose to do, I'll be your biggest cheerleader. And the sport has just given me so much. I just hope to pass on the difference it's made for me, whether it's now coaching at Concordia College or working with developmental swimmers in the club level, but to encourage others the value of hard work, making goals, failing, sometimes succeeding, and just being open to all of the lessons along the way. So you will need those skills in life. Thank you all for being here tonight, and go Rams.
Congratulations to Annalise. You truly did put Roseau swimming on the map, and thank you for that. Our next presenter actually brings to the stage some Hall of Fame good looks, but I'm sorry, Bob, I'm pretty sure they came from her mom's side of the family. With that, I'd like to welcome Shelley LaPlante.
Thank you for introducing me. There have been numerous times in my life when people have said they didn't know that Bobby Lund had a daughter, which leads me to wonder why he asked me to join him on stage. The least athletic of his children, but the best looking. I know you're wondering where he kept me tucked away all those years while the boys and him played hockey. Well, I was like any typical little sister when there was not girls hockey, keeping myself entertained under the concession stands, running around by bleachers, staying back at the hotel to swim. What does this have to do with my dad's induction? Memories, memories, memories. Most of my best childhood memories are involved with hockey. Hockey is more than just a sport in our family. It has brought us to many places we never would have traveled. It has introduced us to so many amazing people who have now become part of our hockey families. It has given us so many opportunities we would not have had Dad not brought hockey into our lives. Some of his hockey career includes being on the 1958 Minnesota State High School hockey championship team with the Roseau Rams. He played for the UMD Bulldogs for numerous years. He played for the Warroad Lakers when in 1964 their team won the Canadian Intermediate Championship. In 1965, he played for the U.S. national team traveling to Finland. He was the UMD freshman hockey coach. He coached Silver Bay High School hockey team. He was the Roseau Bantam hockey coach, the Leafs coach, the Buffalo Trucking coach, leading all of those teams to numerous championships as well. He was a coach manager for 2 national senior Olympic championships. And he was selected in 2012 to be the USA Ironman of the Year by USA Hockey. We traveled out to Colorado and had a cool ceremony. But did you know that my dad is not only a hockey athlete, he was also a great softball teammate in the Roseau Adult Softball League. He's played on numerous golf teams, and he was even a jockey, I've heard. Now, he may not have been the best on each of those teams that he played on, but he was a proud teammate and loves the game. His accomplishments in his sporting career have been some of the best of his memories as well. Although nowadays you may know him more for his accordion playing, his Oldie and Lena jokes, he may now come up here and tell some of his amazing experiences. I'm proud to introduce a man with a terrible heart because he's given 100% of his heart to the game of hockey. Bob.
Yeah, with all the baloney she just threw out there, you'd think some NHL team would have picked me up as a coach. Maybe they lost my telephone number or something, that could be. Thanks, Shelley. Congratulations to all you people up here. Nice you guys could all make it. And now I'll just have a few words to say here. I come way back. Are any of my coaches out there at all? Or? Probably not. I don't think so. Anyway, Saturday morning league, that was a pretty good little league. That was one of the first places where I started playing little hockey. Are there any Saturday morning leaguers that were back in about 1950? Stand up. There must be someone. Stand up, Donnie Ross. Jimmy Stordahl. Oh, I don't know if you were Lollipop. I think you were a little younger. Huh? Anyway, that was quite a league. You know, they named it pretty good. All the teams, you know, it was the Bruins and the Rangers, and they had all of a sudden it's the 6 NHL teams. That's what how they named it. Well, I was on Camp Nelson's Nelson Rangers. He run the Chevrolet place in Roseau, and he was quite the guy. I suppose I was in 5th, 6th grade. I was pretty impressed with him. He would we'd have our little games at the Roseau Arena, and when he got done, he'd say, all right, let's go over to the cafe. He'd say, we'd have a pop. And we'd go over there and have a pop, and he'd tell the waitress, throw some cookies on the tray here, too. He says, we got to have some of those. And so I think I probably had one of the best sponsors. He was pretty good. Anyway, he even had a couple of practices behind the school rink, as I remember. And he brought in this guy by the name of Oscar Almquist to help him, I remember. A couple little bit in the afternoon, and we did some drills, and that was one thing maybe the first thing I learned about hockey. Everybody took a puck and you'd go shoot at the goalie. Well, every time we went down and shot at the goalie, I'd hit him in the pads, and Oscar come and grab me. He says, no, that's not where you shoot. You're supposed to shoot for them corners. So I learned that. I don't know if that ever helped later on in life or whatever. So these Ross boys, you know, and Stordals, you know, they kind of had the advantage over me. They're a whole lot better hockey players than I was, but, you know, the whole difference was Ross, he walked across the street to play at the school rink, and the Stordals, they went over by the old courthouse, and they went over and played at their rink. You know what I was doing on a Saturday? Shoveling cow manure. I would have loved to have been doing what they were doing. Naturally, they got ahead of me. When I got done with high school, actually, I was kind of a bench warmer. I got to tell you that. If there's anybody on that deal out there that did less in high school hockey than me, it would have been me, I think. I was a late bloomer, I guess. Actually, I was in the B team until I was a senior, and then when I got to be a senior, I was kind of an extra player. Until after the first of the year, or it was after Christmas, Oscar changed the lineups a little bit, and by golly, if I didn't, he moved one of the defensemen up front, I guess for more scoring and everything, and then you had to find someone to play defense. So anyway, I started playing defense, and I got the job. So I was a regular then, and I know he got a little heat downtown from the downtown quarterbacks. They had them back in those days too, I guess. But anyway, because they couldn't understand how this little Bobby Lund, 125 pounds, playing defense for the Rams, and he says, don't worry about him, he's strong. He carries Herefords on his back. Anyway, after high school, I should have probably thrown my stuff away, but I didn't. I went down to UMD, and I had an uncle there, and he says, no, he says, go out for hockey. Why not? Why wouldn't you? Well, I said, I didn't think I really had a chance, but I did go out for hockey then, and back then they were playing an independent schedule. And I went out there, and by golly, it looked like I was probably going to make the team, or I'd get to keep practicing with the team. Until the grades came out. You know what happens then? That was the other part of what you had to do, and I was done. So anyway, but I was very fortunate. At Christmas time, there was all these old guys that had graduated from UMD, and they still wanted to play hockey. They started this here team. It was called the Duluth All-Stars, I guess it was. And anyway, we went around playing teams on the range and so on. And don't you suppose, I ended up with playing against another old feller from Roseau, the Masked Marvel, Rube Bjerkman. He was a little older than me, but he was playing with Taconite. So anyway, I went back. I still went back the next year, and I finished out the year, and then come fall again, and looked like I was probably, if I got my grades up, I was going to be able to play. Well, it just happened that then I dropped too many credits, and I didn't have enough credits to play, so I was done again. And I had this one, it was a 5-credit course, and I was flunking that, so I didn't want that on my record. And when the coach heard who the guy was, he says, well, that was pretty stupid. You should have come and saw me. He'd have given you automatic A as long as you played hockey. Anyway, I didn't know that at the time, so. Anyway, I went home then and I went and started playing with the Lakers. That was, for me, it was just like going to play with juniors. And somehow it was the year when Roger and Bill Christian both went to the Olympics. So there was a little room there. So I started playing with them. And the first year I played as just a winger, didn't play much, but then I got moved back to defense. And it just happened that when I got moved back to defense, the two guys I played with, they were a couple of, one guy had played in the National Hockey League for 278 games, and he was now playing with Roseau. You know, that was a pretty good partner. And I had another guy too, he was good. So I got a lot of experience, and after about 2 years, first of all, I'd come home to be the town painter, but we were kind of short on work in the wintertime, so I thought I'd better get back. So I went back to UMD, and then I ended up playing for UMD. Anyway, the big, when I started playing with them, I started playing on a wing, which really wasn't my spot, but that's where I thought I should play. And don't you suppose the big Gopher team come to town with the Stordahl boys. Anyway, Minnesota they had always beaten the Bulldogs. Always beat the Bulldogs. So this was, and they were pretty cocky about it. They thought they could eat pancakes before they played the Bulldogs and win. Well, it just happened that game, it just happened to be that it was a 4-4 tie. And who do you suppose got that tie and goal? None other than Bobby Lund. So, we've had all these years now, we talk about this, and I always talk about Stordahl. I tell everybody how I scored that goal when he's around. Anyway, I said I took the puck behind my own net, and I went down zigzag a little bit, went down to the other end, I split the defense, went right in and put her in the upper right-hand corner. Jimmy can't just wait till say, hey, wait a minute, let me tell you my story, he said. Bobby Lund was on a wing, and he had the puck in the far end behind the Gopher net. And he took and just shot that thing out in front of the net and hit 2 sets of shin pads and went in to score, he said. Now, who are you going to believe? Jimmy Stordahl, the truck driver, or Bobby Lund, the carpet man, you know? I won't take it, no hands. You don't have to put your hands up. Actually, I got to play with Team USA, which was pretty good. I guess I can say that I played against some of the best guys in the world. I probably played with some of the best, played with them also, but I mean, we played Russia and the whole works. The ones I kind of remember that the Norwegians, which we beat the Norwegians, that was good, but it hurt me being the Norwegian, and then the Swedes beat us. That wasn't so good, you know. Anyway, I ended up going to, after I had the U.S. team and I played, had coached the Bulldogs, well then Silver Bay, they had inquired to me, wondering if I was interested in the job and so on. So I went over there and I got the job, and Silver Bay was good. I helped them get their Saturday morning league program going, and of course it was just like Roseau's. And anything, other opportunities. I was in the 5th grade. I taught school over there, and they had a deal there where you could go and visit another school. So I had a buddy down in White Bear Lake, and I went down there to visit. And anyway, my wife Judy, well, she wasn't then, but she was down there also. So I went down to observe the school, and I did a little more observing besides the school. And anyway, I tried to see if I could take her out for lunch or something like that, but she was kind of busy. She had someone else in mind apparently, and so on. So I go back to Silver Bay, and about 2 weeks later, I come back to White Bear Lake again. So I go, as I'm leaving, I go over and knock at her apartment. Nobody there, so I leave a little note. You know, Bob Lund from Silver Bay, I just stopped in for a minute and so on. Anyway, I went back to Silver Bay, and 2 days later, a letter came in the mail. Sorry I missed you. So, you know where I went for the next few weekends and so on, and it was it happened quick. About 6 months later, we got married, and she got the job in Warrow that they wouldn't give me because I wanted to play with the Lakers. But then I come in and got one with Roseau. So anyway, I gotta just tell you a little bit about Roseau Leafs. We had that going. I mean, we went out and got a lot of money. I think we had a contest or whatever it was to see who could sell the most $100 tickets. And I think Steve Dahl, Rick Anderson, and myself, we were the big three probably that sold the most. But anyway, Roseau Leafs, 3 state titles, and they were big titles. They had their picture in the arena here for a couple years, and it's out now, but I'm sure Billy Lund and Billy Jan are going to try to get those 3 pictures up again, and you'll see some of the greatest hockey players that were born between 40 and 60, I would say, or 1940, 1960. And I'm sure they're going to get them up there again. The other thing about the Roseau Leafs, we had this Hook and Harry guy, And I don't know, everybody was a kind of a guy that wrote in these programs, and of course he didn't revolve his name. Nobody knew who it was. There's still people today that say, who was Hook and Harry? And I was told that there's 1 or 2 of them might be in here tonight, the 2 guys that took care of Hook and Harry. All right, it'll be like to tell the truth. Who in here was one of the Hook and Harry boys?
I thought it was a forever secret.
Oh! Well, I have to take the other half of it, okay? He and I used to play together. I was the center iceman, and he was the winger on the left side. Anyway, we had this deal when I'd get the puck coming down the middle, and we'd have like a 3-on-2. Well, he was on my left side coming behind. I'd sneak over here and try and pull both those defensemen with me, and it worked a lot, and I give the little flip backhand to him, and he streaked in on the goal, He had more doggone open breaks, and you know what? I only wish he'd have scored a few. Well, we had a chance. There was a National Senior Olympic Championship team out of Bemidji, and they wanted a couple guys, so they called myself, Donnie Ross, to play with them. And anyway, it was down in Blaine, Minnesota, And the guy from the team there, he said, he wrote a letter and he said, Bemidji, we got 2 things, 2 objectives. 1 is to have fun, and 2 is to have fun. I wrote back to him and I said, yeah, we're kind of like that too. We got 2 objectives. Number 1 is to win, and then we have fun. Anyway, we lost with those guys. But Donnie and I, we got going, and we got our own team for the next 2 years, and we won the national champs for the adult seniors there. And of course, then you heard of the trucking, the Buffalo trucking. I mean, they hardly lose down there. We won, I think, 9 in a row or something like that. And a couple losses. Now Dr. Falk has taken over the team, and they won last year, and look for him to win about 8 in a row, I would think. They just keep moving the age up. I'm hoping they get one up for 80 and over. I might come out of retirement, Might have to use a crutch, but I would, so. I think I'm running out of paper. Oh, here was the one thing about the Lakers. Cal Marvin ran the Lakers, and it was hard to say no to him, And I played with the Lakers and UMD the same year. If UMD wasn't playing, I'd run up to Warrow and play with them. And Christmas, I always played with UMD. And at the end of the year, UMD was done in February because they were playing exhibition, so they weren't into the playoffs. But then the Warrow Lakers started playing. Well, anyway, I went out there with UMD, went out to Denver, and we played two-game series. Well, then went home again, and UMD was about done. But 2 weeks later, Warrow's going to go out there. And Cal Marvin says, Bobby, we need you out there. I says, I can't go there. I said, I might get UMD in trouble, knowing that I was playing with you guys too. He says, we'll just change your name, he said. So I said, he said, we'll call you Ken Lund. So they put on the program out there, Ken Lund. And so anyway, after one of the games there, or during, at the period, I'm not sure, but some guy hollers at, hey Lund, come here, he says. So I go over there and he says, aren't you the same Lund that played with that Warrow or the UMD team 2 weeks ago? No, I says, that was my cousin. God, do you guys look alike? He said. The other one, maybe the kind of a funny thing was when the Cal, he was always, he could always somehow get me to play. I guess I always liked playing there, but one time we had playoffs and we were playing up in Dryden and they were going to play in Warwood the next weekend. So they look at me, can you make it on Saturday? I says, I can't make it on Saturday. I got a final test at 4 o'clock in Duluth. There's no way I can get to Warwood. Well, he said, I guess we'll have to fly you home, he said. So anyway, they were going to have an airplane on this lake. And he says, but first of all, he says, you get your test moved up to 2 o'clock. So you'd be done at 4. Sure enough, 4 o'clock, I went out there, and here was Swede Carlson with an airplane, a little Cub airplane with 5 gallons of gas that I had to straddle. It was like a big bomb up in the air, you know, but we made it, and they had 4 cars with lights on out at the river, and we landed, and everything went fine. So. I think I'm done.
That'll be a tough one to follow. But congratulations, Bob. Bob's hockey legacy, he passed down to his boys, and it continues in Roseau. As most of you probably know, his son Greg has recently been hired as the new Roseau Rams hockey coach. So the runs will continue. We will continue on. At this time, finally, we get the master of the microphone up here, Mr. Jack Swanson.
It was my honor to coach Abby Ness for 6 seasons, and I find out today, could have been a 7th apparently, but Gotzi never told me I could have had a 7th season with her. She would have been my #1 singles player for 7 years, and without question, finest player that I've ever coached. I'll tell you a couple of quick stories before I bring her up here. Tennis is a self-officiated sport, meaning there are no referees. You call in and out and all those, that sort of thing, and the way it works is if you're not sure, you give the point to your opponent. Well, Abby, where's Jay? Abby was the worst line caller that Jay and I have ever seen. Am I right, Jay? If the ball was anywhere within 3 feet, she'd play it. And my theory is that if it's on my side of the court, I'll play it. I don't care, because I'm going to beat you anyway, is what I think was her mind. Abby, relatively tall now, but when she was in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, she was not very tall, but a big hitter. And I don't know if you remember this, Abby, but we were in Thief River Falls, and Abby and I are standing together, and there are 2 moms in front of us, and they don't see us. And the one mom said, from another team, the one mom says to the other mom, she can't weigh more than 90 pounds. And Abby whispers, I weigh 70. And I told Jay and Christy that by the time she was in 9th grade, I would not be able to hit with her by myself anymore. I'd have to have more hitters than just me, which turned out not to be true, because I couldn't hit with her by the time she was in 8th grade. So, finest player that I ever coached, and with apologies to Andy Odegaard, who was a great tennis player here as a boys player in the late 70s, the best tennis player in Roseau history. My pleasure to introduce Abby Ness.
Whew, never held a microphone like this before, so bear with me, everyone. A couple things I regret today is not taking a public speaking class, and also not printing my speech, so again, bear with me. Thanks so much, Jack, for introducing me today. Congrats to everyone else. Those were truly kind words. I appreciate it. I learned a lot of life lessons from a very genuine Hawaiian shirt wearing coach, and I'm very thankful that you're my tennis mentor for so many years. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm incredibly grateful and honored to be here today. I cannot believe it's been 10 years since I've graduated. It's kind of funny, I consider myself to be a pretty humble person, but after reading the write-up in the Roseau Times region, it brought back a lot of great high school memories. Athletics has shaped my life, career, and relationships. One of my favorite memories is being part of the Rams girls hockey first ever state tournament appearance in 2008. Shaking a little bit, apologize. We beat Ward in the section final, and I was lucky enough to score 2 goals that game. I was a lanky little 9th grader, and I remember the sports center being absolutely packed. It's one of those memories that nobody can take from you, and it was honestly the best feeling. And being at the X for the state tournament was intimidating, but I had Amy Olsen, Amanda Monkman, and Kylie Lane by my side. I went on to play college hockey with these 3 talented Roseau women, and it made me realize it's more than just a sport. It's the memories and lifelong friendships that you gain, and your teammates become your family. Today I want to thank all my coaches, friends, family, and especially my parents, grandparents, aunt, boyfriend that are here today, along with everyone who's supported me over the years. I'm truly blessed to have such remarkable people in my life. Athletics was and continues to be a huge part of my life. A question I get a lot is, how did you even grow up in Roseau? A second question I get a lot is, do you even have internet up there? But I honestly wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm so proud I grew up here. This community gave me every opportunity to be successful. Some of my favorite memories are at the North Rink, Robin hockey, golfing holes at Oakcrest, and dragging my brother Aaron up to the court to hit tennis balls. Unfortunately, my brother couldn't be here today, and I know he's a bit jealous. He may have been Mr. Hockey, but he's not in the Roseau Athletic Hall of Fame. So I finally beat him at something. I especially want to thank my parents, Jane and Christy. They've always been there for me and supported me through all aspects of my life, whether it was driving me to the rink, pre-game pep talks, or buying Canadian bacon pineapple pizza after games. I wouldn't be where I am today without them. I love you both so much, and thank you all again for this amazing honor.
Congratulations, Abby. Good job. Jack said probably the best tennis player to come out of Roseau, and definitely near the top of the finest woman hockey player to come out of Roseau. Congratulations. Our next presenter is a Roseau science teacher, and he's following in his father's footsteps as he does lead the Roseau tennis team as a head coach right now. I'll call on Mr. Jeff Swanson.
One of my high school classmates this summer and I were having a conversation, and she said something to me that's really stuck with me the last few months, which is sports is just for now. And I think for many of us coaches, certainly players, it can be really easy to forget that when you're in the midst of competition. I know for me, it's pretty easy to forget that when I'm sitting up here amongst people who have a sports bio that makes me look relatively small, not just in stature. My greatest athletic accomplishment is being allowed onto the field and the basketball court as both the slowest and the smallest person by Tracy Wentzoff and John Lang, so thank you very much for finding a place for the short, slow guy. And that's the one thing when I think about my dad that I feel is his greatest accomplishment in sports is never forgetting that sports is for now and the memories are forever. The experiences that he created for Abby and her teammates, the example he set for me and the way that I run the tennis program, and the experiences that he gave me growing up, which were all related to sports, but on another hand, in no way related to sports, are the things that I think are the most important. He was the play-by-play announcer for the Badger hockey team and brought me along to a number of games. And I was lucky enough to see some great college hockey teams. But the things that I remember about that experience were not necessarily game related. I will never forget watching Yokozuna wrestle Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 9 with the Badger coaching staff on pay-per-view. I'll never forget running around the bases being chased by Steve Rollick, Joe Decker, possibly John Helgeson during the Badgers softball game and cookout at our house. I'll never forget eating dozens of chocolate hockey pucks in the press room of the Bradley Center in Milwaukee during a showdown tournament over a long weekend. Those are experiences that I will remember forever, related to the game of hockey, but also really not. Same thing goes for tennis. Abby's going to remember some of these things, coaching with my dad. I will never forget the time we were eating at Ansari's restaurant in Egan, and a belly dancer showed up out of nowhere in the middle of the restaurant. I will never forget the times that he gave out the Green Blood Award at our year-end banquet, most of which was won by Sue Butler, the bus driver, because she was the most often injured person on the tennis team. I will never forget getting rained out on 2 consecutive days on a tennis trip, and Dad was completely unfazed and decided we would just go see the giant ball of twine in Darwin, Minnesota. So I would agree with the assessment that sports are just for now, and when I see my dad's plaque on the wall, what I will really remember are those memories that we made while we were doing sports. Dad, congratulations, and thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Might as well put it right out there because you're thinking this same thing as I am. This guy up here must be and is the least athletic member of this Athletic Hall of Fame. No question. So, Jeff, thank you. My other son, Willie, is in the audience. Both of them Roseau Rams. Jeff, our friend Jerry Arneson says, there are 2 people in this world, 2 kinds of people in this world, Roseau Rams and those who wish they were Roseau Rams. My granddaughters, Abby and Hannah, are in the audience. Thank you. My daughters-in-law, Angie and Emily. And especially thank you to my wife, Nancy, because I was gone a lot, both in the Badger days and then later coaching here. And she raised 2 boys pretty much by herself for those seasons, which is probably why they turned out as well as they did. Thanks to all of my assistant coaches. Jeff was one of them. Becky Breeze Larson, Steph Walter, Sean and Brittany Goose, Joe Broughton, Joe Theraldson, Del Stordahl, lots of coaches over the years, especially my friend Sharon Grafstrom, who was with me for almost all of those years. One of our players, probably 10, 12 years ago, Sharon, she came up and she said, "Are you and Sharon BFFs?" And I said, "I don't even know what a BFF is." But yes, the answer is yes. Thanks to all of the other Rams coaches that were mentors to me. Thanks to Mr. Gottsman, athletic director during most of those years. Thanks to all of the players, Abby and all of your teammates. But particularly, I want to say thank you to the 2 men that influenced my life most. One is my late father, Ole, and Dick said you played baseball for Ole, right? And the other is Wisconsin's hockey coach, Jeff Sauer. Jeff died about 5 years ago, and I realized after that I'd never really told him or my dad how much they meant to me. So I decided I'm going to start calling folks that I haven't seen for a long time, but that meant a lot to me, and just say thank you. And I told Nancy that I was going to do that. She said, "You know they're going to think you're dying, right?" So now I have to preface every one of those calls to say I'm not dying. But Jeff Sauer and my father treated other people the way they wanted to be treated. They had respect for the game, for their opponents, for their team, for the officials. They taught me to win with grace, to lose with dignity. I will say, Jeff Sauer used to say that win or lose, the beer is just as cold after the game, but it tastes a lot better if you win. So, lastly, I just want to say, I'm not dying, but thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jack, for all you've done for Roseau Athletics, and for Jack was actually working for KRWB back when I was a senior around 1984, and actually announced a few of my basketball games. Okay, on to our last but not least presenter. He's a Hall of Famer himself. Some people say he's probably the greatest high school hockey player to come from Roseau. Let's give it up for Mr. Don Ross. Ken, pretty quick, we'll have you and, was it Joe, somebody gonna come down?
Yep. In a little bit. I just heard Abby say she can't believe it's 10 years already since she graduated. Well, you're going to be looking at a crew that graduated 60 years ago, played football 60 years ago. And where you're sitting right now is probably close to the visitor's side of the football field that we played on that was over here. We did have lights, we had a good bunch of guys, good bunch of players, and we had a lot of success. The coaches in 1959-60 for us were Ray Kavanaugh and Frank Mayshock. Now these guys, if you were looking like a football player, they were after you to get out for football. So we had a lot of players that played, that had never played sports before and so forth, but they did plug the holes, and they did provide opposition for the scrimmages that we had, etc. Ray Kavanaugh was the coach, and Ray went from here to Bemidji, where he was the football coach for Bemidji for several years, and eventually the athletic director. Frank Mayshock came from Rice Street in St. Paul, and he looked like it. He was a brute, and strong, tough, but he had a heart. And he was an excellent football coach, and he assisted Oscar Almquist in the hockey program for several years. Following some of these guys is a little bit tough. Many of the athletes that we had were more than one sport athletes. Some were 2, 3, 4, and even up to 5. We weren't limited in the spring sports, and that's a result of that. A lot of the players that we had went on to coaching careers, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Football back then, we didn't have conferences. My first couple of years, we had very successful football teams, but there weren't any state rankings or anything. You got a schedule, you played your football. When our year in 1959-60, they formed that was the first year of the Northwest Football Conference. And you've got the details of what happened in our schedule in the back of your program, and I'm not going to go into it in detail, but our first game of that year was a 33-13 win over Bagley. Bemidji, at Bemidji, we won 13-0. They had a quarterback, Bob Glass, that went on to be a quarterback for UND. We went to Crosby Ironton. At halftime, we led 7-6. But they had a halfback that broke loose a couple times in the second half, and we lost that game 7-19. That was one of our non-conference games, and so forth. Next, we played Thief River Falls, beat them 27-12. Red Lake Falls, 25-0. Warren, that normally I look at this score and it doesn't seem right, because Warren was always a perennial football power, and many football players went on from that town to higher football. But for some reason, we whooped them pretty good. They're 54-0. We had one game in Sacred Heart, East Grand Forks. That was a barn burner right to the end. We were knocking out the door. That was on their turf, and it was a game that every season you got a game that you should have won but didn't. And this was one of them. We should have won. We knocked at the door the last few minutes of that game, and evidently they stopped us on our extra point, and we must have stopped them on one, but we couldn't get it in that last effort. And their last game we played was 13-0 win over East Grand Forks. East Grand Forks had 2 players in particular that I remember, Dale and Dan Neppel. They went on to play football for the University of North Dakota. So that was our record, our team, and so forth. We had 184 points for, 57 against, and we had 4 shutouts. Before I call up the rest of the players and so forth, I would like to go over or just mention the ones that aren't coming here today. Some, most of them live quite a ways away or had conflicts. One that is not here is Alan Carlson, who's a tackle. He was about 6'3" and 230. Larry Stordahl, not here, 6'1", 185 and N. And like I say, most of these players, a lot of them played both ways. Jerry Hubda lives out in Washington State. Dave Bachlan was the quarterback of the football team that year, and he was also a staple in the hockey tournament, Roseau Hockey Rams. Steve Wilson lives out in Washington. Dave Johnson's currently living in Arizona. Paul Dorwer, halfback out in Arizona. Gary Sunstein, I can't remember, that's one of the things about 60 years later, you can't remember who played every position. I don't quite remember, but Gary Sunstein was on that team. Todd Olaside, currently living in Rockford, Illinois. Little side bit there, he played hockey and football, 6'1", 185, 190 pounds. I don't know if some of you have been to the shed in Warroad, but Todd has been very instrumental in acquiring or helping Bob Marvin acquire the cars that are in the shed. Dave Peterson, a halfback, not here. John Warburg had a conflict, he was a halfback. Richard Alvin lives out in Montana, I believe now. And Richard Alvin played with hockey and football. He went on and played a 4-year career at UND and ended up being a coach at high school at Red River for years. John Andreasen played on that team. Paul Rigg, currently living in Coleraine in Beauvais. Paul was also went on and played. In fact, I should mention none of our players went on and played college football that I know of or am aware of. And one of the keys to our success is we had depth. We had depth, we had size, we had depth in our team and so forth. That's what carried us. Paul Rigg went on in hockey, he played 4 years, or three or 4 years, I can't remember, at UND, and became a hockey coach under Bob Gernander in Coleraine for several years. Merlin Haugen. Merlin was one of those guys that Kavanaugh and Meshock caught in the hallway and got him out on the football field. I think they had to make Merlin agree to one thing. He didn't know much about football, but he was about 6'1" and about 230 pounds, and he was a hole plugger. But he had to agree, if he was going to come off of football, he had to quit smoking for 2 months during the season. Things were different back then. Next, there's another player, Ron Gilfit. I don't remember his position. I get over to Merle Wellen, our fullback. He was only 175 pounds, 180 pounds, if that. But he was one of the toughest, meanest football players, fullback at that time, that we had. The harder he got hit, the more he wanted the football. He'd come back to a huddle and give me that football again, give it again. I'll never forget one time there was a pile. It was a lot of tension in this game, and there was a pile. Things were happening, and big pile up. And the only thing I could see from Merle were his feet sticking up in the air, and they were still going. And then we had a student manager that year, Wendell Grand, that was a student manager, and Wendell went on to a coaching career in Thief River Falls and so forth. So at this time, I would like to do a Michael Luzioni and have all the players come up on the podium, and I'll introduce the rest of them that are here present here now. If you come up now on the stage. There's a couple of them I have stories for that I would like to, we'll see how it goes. Just land them over here, Darren. Yeah. Over here is fine. Before I go any further, I would also mention that besides the conflicts and so forth, we have lost 3 members of our team that played in 1959-60. One was Roger Norman, Jerry Swenson, who was a hard-running fullback also, and Doug Vasura, who lives out in Colorado. He was a halfback, one of our smoothest, fastest runners. I was I could leave myself to last, but I was the center on that team, playing at about 190 pounds. I think our line averaged around 200 to 210 pounds, and that day was pretty big. Oh, one more thing. I don't know if you noticed that when I was going through our schedule and our games, at least one in particular, there's one team that you don't notice on the schedule. And that was Roseau. They had football. Why didn't you play them? We did. We sent the B team over there. A couple of people here I had to throw it in. But no, we didn't play Orbidet in those days. Whatever. Okay, I played center on that 59-60 football team. Kenny Rigg was a lineman in the guard, or back. Played guard. Keith Brandt, 165 pounds guard from Salo, Minnesota. These guys from Salo like to hang on to Salo. Keith also was a player in the several hockey teams. Yeah, I think he lettered in football, many sports and so forth, but particularly on the hockey team, lettered 3 or 4 years. Bert Wog, he was a tackle, and he was a fit tackle. So at 210 pounds, there was no extra weight on him. But I just learned before we came on the stage here that we did a lot of scrimmaging, and one of the toughest guys he had to play against was the guy I'm going to mention next, because he said he was so quick, so smart, and so forth. Bert was mentioning the next guy, Don Miller. Maybe you didn't know that, Don. For those that you don't know, there was one game that Don was fortunate that he did make, or one contest he didn't make. He was one of the finalists for to be one of the astronauts to go into space that did not fare well. Jerry, how did I mention? Okay, and next we have Darwin Johnson, lineman, and a goaltender, and a producer of goaltenders. Several of his sons have been goaltenders for Roseau over the years. Dennis Andall. Don't let that gentle smile, smirk sway you. I saw this guy play defense sometimes. I can't believe in particular one story where the guy was already out of bounds and he came flying, temperatures were hot, and he came flying and hit this guy while I think he was out of bounds. I could not believe he didn't get thrown out of the game or at least flagged, nothing. He comes back on the field with the biggest grin on his face, and he loved to hit people. Then we got Richard Roth. Richard Roth was a halfback. Okay? He admittedly did not like to get hit. And one thing I always thought about Dick Roth was, some of you are old enough to remember the singer Tiny Tim, and he had that song, Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Well, Dick Roth wasn't a punishing runner. He wasn't the fastest guy we had, but boy, could he pick his way through the tulips. He didn't like to get hit, and he could dodge bullets left and right. And did well. And he was a stalwart goaltender, one of the only goaltenders in the state of Minnesota to be All-State 2 years in a row. And I think that's it for our team. We played this over 60 years ago. We had fun, good team, and we had depth and balance. And we thank you for the induction into the Roseau Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Congratulations, guys. Thanks, Joe and Ken, for helping out there. This is going to conclude our program. It's been an honor for me to be on stage with these amazing people. it never ceases to amaze me, this little town 10 miles from Canada, the great athletes that has been put out and the great people who have helped our athletes over the years. It's just amazing. I honestly don't think there's a lot of towns in the state that have put out the type of athletes and people that we have here. And it's just a testament to our community, and hopefully it'll continue. So thank you to the presenters. Congratulations to all the inductees. Let's now head over to the Commons. There's going to be some cake and coffee. People can do some reminiscing, take some pictures. But thanks a lot for coming, and hope to see you all again next year.